This is Peak Earth. I'm Case Bradford. Thank you for tuning in to this episode with Yahli, founder of Wayve Wear. In this episode, we discuss polyester versus natural fiber. What are the harms of wearing polyester? What are the benefits of wearing natural fiber? We dive deep into this conversation, as well as some of the ways in which Yahli has built his business, Wayve Wear. Over the years, it's a startup, it's a small business. He has been hustling and working hard to create the best possible natural fiber clothing that he can. It's great. I'm currently wearing his organic cotton tank top, his natural fiber shorts, which are a blend of organic cotton on the shell and merino wool as the liner. We dive deep into merino wool as a fabric. It's not like wool, it's very different. It's a much finer fabric. If you'd like to contribute to Peak Earth, I came up with a few ideas. One is to leave a 5-star review on the Spotify app or the Apple app. That always puts a smile on my face. Two, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm filming a lot more of these live and in person now. This one was remote over the internet, but I have a couple episodes up there that I recorded up in trees with good friends and powerful people. Three, you can check out Wayve Wear. There's a link down below with a coupon code so you can save a little cash on your Wayve Wear order. Amazing natural fiber goods, organic cotton, sweats, tank tops, natural fiber, fitness shorts, casual shorts, even merino wool workout clothes for women. Amazing, awesome, natural fiber clothing. Check out Wayve Wear below. Without any more rambling from me, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode with Yahli. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Great. Stoked to reconnect with you. It's been a while.
Been some time. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, dude, thanks for having me on. I always love talking to you and happy to talk through Wayve and everything. So it'll be good.
I'm excited as well. And you've grown the company a lot since we've spoken last. And just for everyone listening, how would you describe Wayve? What is it that you do?
Yeah, so I think the quickest way to describe it is basically a natural fiber apparel company. So I focus on activewear, but I basically make clothing out of natural materials like organic cotton, merino wool. And the real reason I do it is because most clothing out there is made from synthetic materials, which are most of the time just plastic. And since learning about, like all different types of health and wellness, ways of life, and learning about the impact of plastic on our health and the earth, I wanted to make clothes that are more in alignment with that natural way of living. So yeah, I'm doing it through the clothing and making natural clothes.
That's huge. That's awesome, because we've really drifted pretty far away from natural clothing, and most apparel these days is made out of plastic, like you mentioned, polyester.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think it was in the 70s when polyester first started becoming big, and ever since then it's been a growing material that people use to make clothing. And now most of the clothes that are made out of polyester or some other form of plastic, and it's pretty sad to see. It makes sense in some ways for why companies are doing it, but I think it comes at the detriment of the consumer and the health and like overall wellness of the earth as well. So I think there's a bit of a movement now where natural fiber clothing is kind of coming back, and people are kind of galvanizing around that idea, which is really exciting to see. But I still think it's very early on in that movement, and there's still a ton of momentum to gain and like more to grow in that sense. So it's an encouraging start, but I think there's still so much more that it can grow into.
Absolutely. It is very early on. It's certainly gained a ton of momentum in certain spaces within like the holistic health space on social media. But if you look at broad trends, there aren't that many people looking for it or aware of it overall. People haven't gotten used to looking at the tags of clothing the same way they would look at an ingredients list on a piece of food. Like, is there plastic? Is there polyester in this article of clothing? Usually we're just looking for, do I like the way it looks? Do I like the way it fits? And do I like the price tag?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I think especially with activewear, it makes a big difference. And something I find kind of interesting is that, when people are looking for activewear, they're looking for gym clothes or whatever it is, they're doing it because they want to, improve their health and their lifestyle. They're going out, like working out, a lot of the times people that are buying these clothes are already pretty health conscious, and they already avoid plastic in food, like you're saying, plastic in kitchen equipment, plastic in their water, whatever it is. But to your point, it's just not really well known enough that our clothes, for the most part, are just plastic as well. And so it's kind of funny that when people are going out and trying to improve their health by working out and buying these clothes to help in that sense of their life, they're also, just kind of exposing themselves to more toxins, knowingly or unknowingly. But it's not really the consumer's fault. It's just kind of the way the market is. Like, there's not really many options or knowledge about it. So I think it's going to be one of those things that once people realize, and I've seen it firsthand, when people first understand that they're wearing plastic, they're kind of disgusted by it and want to change it right away. So yeah, I think education is the biggest piece for now, at least.
Yeah, I agree. Once you begin to wake up to the fact that plastic is adding to our toxin burden, start looking around like, okay, the cutting board's plastic, that's
Yeah.
gotta be swapped out. The spatula's plastic, especially when I've been traveling a lot, lived in 20 different homes in the past year, going Airbnbs, and a lot of times there's plastic everywhere. And you start looking around, you're like, dang, this is wild. We really have become obsessed with plastic, like containers, plastic, even grass. A lot of times you go, it's plastic. Like, you've turned AstroTurf has become this thing that's
Yeah.
like, even the grass is plastic. Houses are starting to become made of plastic more now, and I think there's a growing awareness around the fact that this stuff, plastic, it breaks down into microplastics and nanoplastic, which ends up in our ocean and in our food and back into our bodies. It's causing some pretty serious problems, and we're becoming aware of this now. And there's this huge tidal wave of plastic still just being pumped out every year.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. There are crazy stats out there where people consume like a credit card's worth of plastic every week, I believe it is. And then there are all these studies where people are checking, are we finding microplastics in our bodies? And to your point, like, we see it in our blood, they're in placentas and brains. Like, every single time we check for it, it's there. So I think yeah, like, plastic is everywhere, and when it breaks down, right, it spreads not just to the ocean, but also like the air and the soil, and it just kind of moves all over the world. Like, there's plastic in like frozen ice caps, like in Antarctica, or there, like, it makes its way all over the world, and of course it makes its way back into our bodies. And then especially when you wear it and you're rubbing it directly on your skin, like, it has a straight route into your body. And so yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I think people are starting to understand it. In a lot of ways, it feels unavoidable to have exposure to plastic. So it's really just about like minimizing all these different points of exposure. And then hopefully over time, with more people caring about this and maybe buying like non-plastic alternatives, then we kind of start to see the shift away from it. But right now there's so much demand, and because of that, all these big companies are using it. It's cheaper to use. And it's just, yeah, it makes its way everywhere.
One of the more criminal aspects of this is how much these companies are charging for the plastic, for the polyester pieces. Companies like Lululemon or Viore are marketing this as something that is athletic wear, and it's so cheap. It's cheap Chinese toxic plastic that they are marking up at enormous margins so that they can pump marketing materials into the minds of the masses. Meanwhile, it's really cheap toxic plastic. And when we focus on polyester in particular as being harmful to health, what are some reasons how and why that could be bad? I know you mentioned that it is in direct contact with our skin, but what are some other reasons why folks would want to be aware of polyester as being potentially risky?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So, like, I can start with what you're mentioning about like how polyester is made, what it's made of, and how brands are kind of pushing this angle of performance gear, and also pushing this angle of how using recycled materials, which means like recycled polyester, is actually sustainable and good for the planet, right? Because people hear recycled and they think automatically, all right, this is a good thing to support. But recycled polyester is really just when you take plastic bottles. So a lot of times these, big clothing manufacturers or fabric producers just get a huge influx of plastic bottles, and they basically just sort them by color, and then they basically shred them up into tiny little pieces and melt them down and use chemicals to remove all the labels that are on the plastic bottles, all this dirt, whatever, and they just turn it into this new form of plastic. And they take that, they like spin it into threads, they add more chemicals to make it what we think is like performance gear. So they make it moisture wicking, like anti-wrinkle, all this stuff, and all that is basically created by adding a bunch of different chemicals to the plastic. And so first of all, like those chemicals on their own, just to make it into something that's usable for fabric, is pretty harmful. Like they use pretty well-known carcinogenic chemicals like formaldehyde, BPA, all these other things that are used to produce the actual fabric. So that's going to be bad for everyone that's working to produce these clothes. And then on top of that, there could be some off-gassing of those chemicals, like once you have the finished product. So that's stuff you for sure want to avoid. And that's something that I think isn't thought about enough as well, is like all these chemical finishes that contribute to making these performance gear what we think of as performance. And then once you have the actual clothing, if you put all that aside, right, when you're wearing clothes, especially when you're working out, they're rubbing against your skin all the time. And when you're working out, you basically generate more heat, and that heat opens up your pores on your skin. And essentially, with the friction, more and more microplastics from your clothing are released and have direct access into your body. So they go through your skin. Your skin is really absorbent. So anything that touches it, whether it's clothing or skincare or whatever it is, like it gets absorbed and has like a very direct route into your body, into your bloodstream. And these microplastics are small enough that they can enter through your skin and go straight into your body. And that alone is pretty dangerous. I think there are lots of studies out there, and just common sense, you kind of know you don't want to accumulate a bunch of plastic and toxins into your body. But this is really like one direct path to do that. And the other thing is like the places where you're wearing these clothes are a lot of times the most absorptive areas of your body. So like like the crotch region is going to be the most absorptive part of your body, maybe aside from like your armpits or whatever, but you're wearing like tight clothing on there and it goes straight into those areas of your body. So it has a direct impact on things like your fertility, your hormones, your endocrine system, like all these things are impacted by your clothing. And so when you're constantly wearing plastic, when you're working out, when you're in the sauna, even just like walking around day to day, like all these things add up because you're wearing clothes, like 16 hours a day, some people 24/7. Like it's a bunch of small actions that compound. And when you look back after a few years or decades of doing this, that's when you see, like, wow, this has like a real impact on our health.
Well said. And it really is a bit alarming, or it can be alarming when you hear all of that at once, especially if you have a wardrobe full of polyester apparel and you like to go into the sauna, or you like to do hot yoga, or you like to work out in the heat, suddenly realizing that, oh gosh, this is seeping into my skin. And there are examples of people who have suffered from skin issues and they changed from polyester to natural fiber clothing, and those skin issues resolved, which makes a lot of sense. And another aspect of this that I was reading about was how when you wash polyester clothing, so we put them in the washing machine, they break down, those microplastics go into the waterways, and the equivalent of 50 billion water bottles every year go from our laundry systems into the oceans through this, which is absolutely mind-boggling, impossible to wrap the mind around. That is an unfathomable amount of plastic from clothing that is being washed. But then the other part of this was when you put it in the dryer, then those particles end up in the air when you open the dryer, when you're doing the laundry, and you're inhaling them. So it's ending up in the lungs that way. So it's a really brutal and rough situation that is like,
pretty crazy.
How do we stop that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's insane. And if you think about it, you can keep thinking about, the downstream impacts of it. And like, if it ends up in the water, in the oceans, that means all the wildlife in there is ingesting it, which means fish have it when we go fishing. The fish we eat have it, and it just kind of goes up the food chain that way. When you think about, like putting it in the dryer, it means every other piece of clothing you have in the dryer is also now has particles of plastic on it, and then next time you wear it, it's on your skin. So yeah, not to mention the fact that it's in the air and you're inhaling it directly. But it's I think it's one of many similar cases where there are a lot of toxins around us in the world, and I think it's the only way to stop it from happening is going to be like a slow shift in the way that we think about products, the way that we, the way we buy different things for our own lives. And like we can make different clothes that are plastic free, but it's not going to change the impact of plastic on the environment through these clothes unless people actually go and buy these things. So whether it's making it more accessible to people, whether it's spreading more education to people and having them care about it, I think that's going to be the only way we see change in this aspect. And the other thing is, like, clothes have a huge impact on the overall like microplastic pollution problem if we just consider it in like those words, right? So I think rubber tires from cars are the number one polluter, and then the second one is the textile industry. So over a third of clothes, or over a third of the microplastics that are polluted into the world, come from the textile industry, and that's just going to keep growing if we keep supporting brands that use recycled polyester, that use spandex, nylon, whatever it is. And it's pretty crazy. Like, the clothing industry is very wasteful, and there are like millions of tons of clothes that are discarded every year. And so I think that's the other important thing, is to consider the material, because plastic doesn't break down either. Like, it takes like tens and tens of years for it to break down. And when it breaks down, it goes into these microplastics. But if you're using natural materials, they're going to biodegrade back into the earth. And that waste is like a little less painful to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another component of this that is interesting to talk about, which isn't spoken around as often, is the dyes that are used on apparel. And I know those can range from like perfectly natural plant dyes, which are incredibly difficult to find and expensive from what I've seen, to like fully synthetic and adding to the chemical kind of toxin load, and I'm sure there's an entire gradient and spectrum in between. What have you found in your research and in your implementation of the dyes for coloration of clothes?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Dyes are kind of like an afterthought in a lot of cases, and even for my brand, I think I still have a long ways to go to improve that. Right, there are going to be kind of three general categories of dyes, like the fully synthetic dyes, which are made from petrochemicals, similar to how virgin polyester is made. And then there's going to be kind of like a semi-synthetic category, which is, again, I'm not like the full expert here, but they basically are using less intense chemicals, and they are better in terms of like the water usage and being environmentally friendly that way. And then there's going to be the fully natural dyes, and there are pros and cons to all these different categories. Of course, the fully synthetic ones are going to have like very vibrant colors, and they're going to be way cheaper to use. So that's why a lot of brands will go that route. And it's also just the standard in the clothing industry. The semi-synthetic ones you can find based on different certifications. So for Wayve, right now I'm using these semi-synthetic dyes, which are basically certified with this certification called OECO-TEX 100. So they use non-toxic chemicals, or at least like less toxic chemicals, and they're better with water consumption. And they go through a certification process, so like what you're getting. There's a certain standard there. And then the next one is the natural dyes, which are used from plants or animals. So you can think like indigo. You can use like avocado peels, onion peels, coffee grounds, all these different things. I've experimented with it like for my own sake. Like, I was tie-dyeing a shirt one time and used coffee grounds, which was pretty cool. And so the benefits are, of course, that it's fully natural, but it also comes with some unique properties where, like, over time, every time you wash it, the color fades a bit more, which I think could be really cool and kind of adds to the uniqueness of a piece. And it builds some like character and everything. But at the same time, if you want to have like a very specific look to a garment, it's gonna change over time. That's why you see jeans that like fade, things like that. So those are kind of the three categories. But yeah, I think long term, my goal is to use natural dyes. It is just a lot more expensive. And yeah, I mean, like using natural fibers is expensive. I think it's just a matter of making trade-offs at this point where I want to try to grow my brand as much as I can. And I think dyes are very important, but I think the material right now takes priority. So that's kind of my main focus. And as soon as I get to a point where I can transition to it, I'll do that.
It's a great explanation, and there must be tons of little decisions like this, small trade-offs that you've made along the way in building the brand. I know I'm going through a similar process with this, with the natural fiber products that I'm creating, where you've got every little piece and component can be made from different materials, and you've got to decide like how expensive do I want this thing to be. Ultimately, you want it to be bringing a step in the right direction without it being out of reach by the vast majority. So you've got to make these choices and these trade-offs between like, well, I want this to be the best possible thing and the most affordable for the most people. So like, how do we go about doing that? What are some other trade-offs that you've sort of played with or faced along the way, aside from the dye and the materials that you mentioned?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because every little thing, if you don't specify it, and this I think goes for any business, if you don't specify it to the person that's producing it or your supplier or whatever it is, they're going to make assumptions. And most of the times, those assumptions are probably not the decision you want to make. They'll probably just go with whatever's cheapest and most convenient. And a lot of this stuff I didn't really know going into starting Wayve. Like I didn't go into it with any background in fashion or anything. So I was kind of learning a lot of this on the fly. But I think another piece that I've wanted to prioritize comes with like the packaging for Wayve. Because again, when you get, so I can explain kind of like from a clothing perspective, when you order clothes from a manufacturer, they're going to create the clothing and then they're going to ship it to you in a certain way. And so you can specify or not how you want them to be shipped. Like if you want each piece to be shipped in, it's called like a poly bag. So most of the time these poly bags are, based on the name, like made out of plastic. And that's what your clothes are sitting in when they ship overseas. That's a lot of times what brands use to ship it to customers. And for me, it didn't really make sense in my head to use like normal plastic bags to ship my clothes, because if my whole thing is I don't want to use plastic, I want to make sure that the clothes are shipped in some like organic material. So that's something else that I made a conscious decision of that I didn't really think about before. But all of the clothes that I make basically are shipped in these compostable bags, and then I order like compostable mailers as well, or like cardboard boxes, and ship my clothes in that, so that at least I'm reducing the usage of plastic for how the clothes arrive. So I think that's like another example of things that you might not think about, but I think especially if you grow your brand and start shipping out a ton of orders, those little things start to add up. And so it's important to consider things like that. But yeah, there's like endless little micro decisions and trade-offs that you have to make when you're doing when you're starting any sort of business. So it's always something to consider, because you want to keep things, affordable as much as you can for your customers, but you also want to make the product like as good as you can. So you have to kind of pick your battles.
Absolutely. And there are all these small choices that ultimately can help you stay in integrity with your mission. Like those compostable bags is a great small way to signal to the people who are supporting Wayve and who want to be a part of this mission that we're going to be moving away from plastic as much as we can. And every small detail matters. What are some other movements or moments that you've experienced along the way of building Wayve that have helped Wayve grow and emerge more into the awareness of people who are into natural fiber apparel?
Yeah, I think Wave is still pretty small compared to like how I envision it to be, but there's definitely been a lot of support from the community that I'm a part of. Like I started Wave, I started working on it in September 2023 and only started selling clothes the next year, September 2024. But I started posting online, like kind of documenting everything that I was doing leading up to that, mainly on Twitter at first. And I was in LA at the time, and that's how you and I got connected. Like I think you saw some post or profile picture of me in a park in LA, and you reached out and you're like, hey, like, are you in LA? Are you in this part? We do this movement meetup, and you invited me to come out, and that's how I met you initially, which is pretty crazy to think about. And through that movement meetup, I've met a lot of people that have helped with the brand. Like we did the first photo shoot for Wave with you as the model, and then Brandon from Movement Meetup was there too, taking photos and videos. I met a few other people that have helped me since then to do different photo shoots, and I've connected with a lot of people, and joined like the IRDA Olympics as a sponsor. So I did like my first pop-up in-person event in LA as well. And it's those types of things that I think go a long way. So like that's for sure been something that's been very cool for me to see, and just gives me more, especially in the beginning, it gave me a lot more confidence in what I'm doing, just to have like real people support and show interest and like want to see the brand grow. And it's definitely a lot different seeing it like in person versus online. And then online too, it's just, I feel like once you start creating stuff, whatever it is, whether it's a business or just sharing your thoughts online, like all these different opportunities open up. And so that's been another cool thing, is just like reaching out to people that before I started posting, I would just kind of look at as, like random people on my screen, but you can really connect with them. And, like, I know you like to say like co-create, which I think is a good way to explain it. Like you can co-create a lot of different things just by sharing your thoughts, and otherwise it wouldn't be possible. So I think that aspect has been really, really big for the brand in my experience. And it's kind of opened up a lot of doors, and I've met a lot of really cool people. And yeah, I mean, like the other day, for example, I saw that this guy, Oren John, I don't know if you know him, but he made a reel about like natural fiber activewear, and he mentioned Wave, which is like pretty crazy for me to think about, because I would watch his YouTube videos on how to, like build content and, help scale a brand and all this stuff. And in the past, I would think like, man, this guy's got a lot of stuff figured out. Like he's very interested in all these different things. And I would listen to a lot of what he says. And now it's like, since putting my ideas out there into the world, it's cool to see it come full circle. And like he saw what I was putting out there and thought it was like cool enough to mention on one of his posts. And so I think it's one of those examples where you just need to kind of share what you're doing, and all these different doors kind of open up.
Absolutely. And that's awesome. And really is one of the missions of Movement Meetup. And you were one of the early people who joined. Yeah, because I saw you online doing a handstand at a park, and I recognized that park. I was like, this guy's cool. He's doing the handstand. We'll get him into the group. And turned out, yeah, you're one of the people in there who brought a lot of energy, and we're on this mission to start a natural fiber apparel brand, which is just aligned with everyone who's a part of this group of like being based and into holistic health. And it was really cool to see that Orange on video, which I will link down below so that everyone can see that. If you'd like to see what we're referring to, he highlighted your flow set, which is a new merino wool activewear set for women, which is really one of the biggest problems that I see is yoga pants and women's athletic wear, I guess you would describe it as. So that's like overwhelmingly plastic. I see a lot of anyone can go out right now and you see a lot of women wearing yoga pants and polyester fits, and they look great on a lot of women. And on some women, I'm not sure why they're cramming themselves into these tight fitting polyester. That's not really for me to judge. It doesn't look comfortable all the time, but I will say that they're very popular, and you've created a better alternative, which is 100% merino wool, and it went viral on X, and I'm sure it will continue to be popular because it's a much needed innovation. So great work developing that. It looks amazing. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what went into that and how it has being received.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm glad to see people are excited by it. I think, to your point, it's one of the biggest problems when it comes to activewear. Because when I started Wayve, there were a few different brands out there that made, like natural fiber apparel for the gym or working out, but it was all targeted for men. So it was all like organic cotton or cotton shorts. I think finding cotton t-shirts is easy enough, but the main thing was like workout shorts that are made from cotton. And for men, it's pretty easy to find them. You can find them like all over the place with a wide range of prices and different styles and whatnot. So when I started, I wanted to offer like a different angle for the men's stuff. But at the same time, I knew that like women's activewear is like, there's a very specific thing that women like, from what I can tell, and talking to different people about, like what they like to wear and why. And I think a lot of it is about, how it looks and how it makes them feel when they wear it. And unfortunately, a lot of that comes down to the form fitting factor that these yoga pants and biker shorts have that are made of plastic, because they have that ability to kind of like stretch and mold to your body and snap back and all this stuff, but it's all plastic. And so the idea was to kind of try to stay true to that same look and style that people like, but offer it in a natural fiber alternative, and kind of just make it as good as possible. So yeah, that's kind of the inspiration behind it. And then from working on my men's stuff, I already knew that merino wool would be the best material for it, because it is stretchy naturally and it has all these different properties that make it really good for working out. It doesn't fit like quite the same because it doesn't have that spandex, but it still is like form fitting and has some stretch to it. So it's pretty much as good as you're going to get in terms of keeping that fit the same while having it be made of natural materials. So that's kind of the idea behind it. And yeah, it was cool to see it kind of pop off on X. So hopefully it keeps going. I'm going to restock them probably at the end of this month.
Awesome. And that is interesting to think about, because you've made it 100% merino wool, which is remarkable considering there's no spandex in there. And the spandex is really what gives it that sort of form-fitting feel and look and characteristic, which is what you mentioned. And I guess that is actually an advantage of plastic. Like, we have to give some props to plastic and polyester. There are some advantages, like it's lightweight, it's form fitting and can be tight, but those advantages do come with drawbacks that we've mentioned. And we could even mention a few more drawbacks, one being that polyester tends to carry more odor than natural fiber. So something like merino wool, and I'd love to hear you describe the properties of merino wool, the benefits of it, because it's very different from normal wool as well. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, when I tell people I make clothes, like workout clothes out of wool, they always kind of look at me crazy, and they're like why are you doing that? Because when you hear wool, generally you think of this like super hot, itchy fabric that you use for like Christmas sweaters or whatever. But the thing about merino wool is it's very unique in its characteristics and properties. And it's like merino wool comes from the merino sheep, which is, I think most of them are from Australia, New Zealand. And essentially their wool is super, super fine. So each like fiber of wool is about a third of the thickness of a human hair. So it's really, really fine. And that makes it super soft, doesn't irritate your skin. And that's like the first thing that kind of stands out about it. So it's really nice to feel. And the other properties of merino wool that make it really good is, like, to your point, it's very breathable, it's antimicrobial, it's temperature regulating, um, it's moisture wicking. So that's why you see a lot of merino wool. People know merino wool sometimes from like hiking gear or like base layers for skiing because of these things. Like, it keeps you warm and you don't need a super thick layer of it. And people use it for travel a lot too because it's so breathable, moisture wicking, antimicrobial. You can re-wear the same shirt or whatever garment it is like multiple times without having to wash it. So you see a lot of different companies like make clothes out of wool. There's this one t-shirt company that just makes shirts out of merino wool because it's good for packing. You have to pack like 3 shirts for a couple weeks and you can just rewear them over and over again. So that's kind of the idea behind wool. And not to mention the fact that it's stretchy also, or merino wool specifically. So there are a lot of different benefits. And I mean, I've been wearing merino wool with the quad short that I do. I've worn the same pair for now probably like 2 years, and it's still like holding up well. So it's not, it doesn't really, it's like, it's pretty durable and it has all these different benefits. And I wear my shorts probably like 2 to 3 times before I wash them. And so that's another benefit of it, which you definitely cannot do if you're wearing polyester shorts, because it traps all the heat and the odor and stuff, and it just smells so bad.
It's a great point, and it's really well said. I've worn your quad shorts for years as well at this point, and the merino wool liner that you have in there, so that's kind of like underwear built into the shorts, which is great for when doing handstands because you don't have to worry about anything, any sort of wardrobe mishap. So the merino wool liner, very silky smooth and breathable, and then you've got the organic cotton shell on the quad short. So I could see how a woman who's wearing this merino wool activewear set that you've got, the flow set, would be very comfy in merino wool as opposed to something made of Lululemon plastic polyester. It's a great innovation, great alternative, and something that I cannot wait to see spread more of around town. Just everywhere I go, I'd love to see more people wearing merino wool because it's such a better fabric. It's also got a higher frequency. If people are familiar with the concept of frequency, it's the rate at which the molecules oscillate within the fabric. So you've got something like polyester, which is not a living fabric. It's a dead fabric, doesn't really oscillate. There's no energy flow in there, but something like merino wool does oscillate at a higher frequency. And this sounds incredibly woo-woo. It is a little bit woo-woo, but it's something that has been studied and measured, and you can look it up. Linen has a very high frequency, and it's the reason why linen was used in hospital settings for that purpose. So merino wool, you can feel it when you put it on. It's a much higher frequency fabric, much more comfy, and it has all the benefits that you mentioned, where you've got temperature regulation, you've got antimicrobial, so there's less odor in there. It's really an amazing underused fabric. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I never really wore merino wool before. Initially, when I was designing the quad short, I wanted to make it all cotton, and I was planning on using some like ribbed cotton for the liner, but like after I was researching it more, I realized it just wouldn't hold its shape the same way. So I'm really glad I shifted to merino wool because I think it just makes it so much better. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. And if you go down all these rabbit holes, like with the frequency and everything, I think there's truth to it. And especially if you believe that stuff, like it makes a difference. And in my experience, when I shifted to wearing natural fibers basically all the time, whether it's my clothes or other clothes that I wear, like I felt a lot better. I kind of felt a shift in my mood and my energy. And if I have to wear polyester clothes for whatever reason, like it just feels kind of off. And so I don't know if that's just me, but I do think there's for sure something there. Yeah, and it's something interesting to think about.
I agree 100%. I don't usually talk about the frequency of it ever because it just like doesn't land, and it's sort of, people tend to discount what you're saying if you're mentioning the frequency of the fabric just because it's so out there. But the reality is that it's a lot more comfy. I don't own any polyester clothing anymore. Got rid of all of it and wear all natural fibers all the time, and have for around a year probably. And it's just comfier. And that comfort, where does that come from? maybe that comes from the frequency of the fabric, but it's something that you feel 100%. And when you feel good, your quality of life is increased. So it's a nice little way to increase your quality of life. And the idea around investing in higher quality clothing and having a lower quantity is also nice. Just not having a closet and a bunch of drawers full of just like tons of clothing that you're never even going to wear. I think most people probably have way too much apparel and could
Yeah.
use a little audit of just getting rid of stuff and having a lot less clothes, and then just shifting it to higher quality pieces that they're going to have for their entire life, ideally. And that is a nice way to approach the problem of what do I wear on the skin, because I really can't walk around naked. That's just completely against the law.
Yeah, not yet, at least. No, it's true. I think in general, also just having too many belongings and clutter, it just is not good for your mental well-being. Like I think it affects your subconscious and just creates clutter in your mind the same way there's physical clutter around. So I was talking to you before we started this podcast, but I think both of us have been moving around a lot in the last few years, and with that comes kind of needing to shed a lot of these belongings that we have. And I think it makes you feel a lot better in general, whether it's your wardrobe or just anything that you own, like thinking like, do you really need to own this? Like, how important is it? And getting rid of stuff is very freeing in my experience. And there have been times where I've moved and I didn't have space and I had to kind of store different boxes of my belongings. And then after a couple months, I forget what's in the boxes. And I think that goes to show, like, do you really need to keep this stuff if you don't even remember what it is, or like when was the last time you used it? But yeah, I think cutting down on what you own has a lot of benefits, wardrobe included.
It's really true. It's quite liberating to get rid of a bunch of stuff that you don't need. And by nature of being human, we grow attached to possessions and materials and belongings, and we value them as higher than they really are. And you never know, I might need that someday, and it's been sitting in the drawer for 5 years and it's just collecting dust. But it's very difficult mentally to be like, no, this is gone now. But if you do go through that process, if you do clean out closets and drawers and shelves and things, you do feel just lighter afterwards, and you no longer have to sort of like cognitively keep track of this thing. It's like closing open tabs on the internet browser. And yeah, it is interesting experience living nomadically, not having a place to settle, and on one hand feeling very uprooted and wishing that I had certain things, but then finding that I can just make do without them, and finding like what really are the valuable things that I want to have and carry with me. If I only have like a couple bags to fill, and like what is really necessary versus what is unnecessary, and how can I just focus on the necessary things to bring my life to the best possible place.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's so much noise in this life, and so many distractions, and so much, so many different things to think about, but in your mind there's limited space to a certain extent. And I think if you shed a lot of these physical belongings, if you shed like old ways of thinking, it kind of frees up all these new like new opportunities to create something more meaningful or improve the way that you think about your life, or all these different things. And I think like shedding is one of the first steps that you have to take, or at least like releasing the attachment to things is really important.
Absolutely. And many major religions speak to the importance of this. A lot of times we're held back in progress in our lives through holding on to the dead weight of things that we once were, and we have to sort of get rid of that in order to feel lighter and progress and get to the new. We have to let go of the old to get to the new, and that can manifest in many different ways. It could be our own internal state, it could be a job, it could be a relationship, it could be a place of living. And the process of letting go and detaching and then moving towards what we want and making that real is kind of the cycle and the process of self-improvement. If you really boil it down to the most simple essence, that is repeated again and again throughout my life. And sometimes I've done it well, other times I've done it poorly. And looking back, I can clearly see that's just a repeating cycle that is going to happen again. And this process of letting go of physical items is a great practice for that, because with those physical items come memories and stored emotions, and getting rid of those, you can really kind of move into this new sense of self.
All these things hold memories and feelings and all these things, and it just letting go of that is so important. But yeah, this is another thing that I think about a lot, is just kind of like having the right mindset when you go into things, because I feel like these days the way society is structured is it almost kind of encourages people to follow the same type of route in life, and taking risks and doing something different and kind of following that uncertainty is almost looked upon as like crazy. And for me, in my experience, like pretty much every time I've done that, I've always just felt so much better and more aligned with what I want to do. I grew up kind of always following things by the book, kind of going down the path that I thought was the best. But as you kind of follow your intuition more and like listen to what you truly want, even though it's scary and uncertain, I think that's where you really grow a lot. And I think that's like one of the points of living life, is like to just follow that feeling and see where it takes you. Because yeah, I think life always has a way of working itself out, and especially if you follow your, those feelings that you have inside that might feel scary at the time, like I feel like that's where like the most change and growth happens. And so yeah, it's all kind of connected with the way you think about your belongings and your mindset and the thoughts you have in your head, and it's all connected, which is pretty crazy.
It's a great reflection, and I agree. Facing the fear can be a signal to go in a certain direction, and confronting that fear and overcoming it is how we face challenges, develop new skill sets, new ways of being, and then grow as human beings. And as you were talking about all this moving, I remembered that you're currently packing up orders and shipping them on your own. So that must be an extra added element of challenge. Could you talk a little bit about the value of packing up orders and shipping them by hand versus putting them in a warehouse? And how does like a small business owner go from being packing these up by hand with care to like putting it into a warehouse? What is that whole system and process like?
Yeah, I'm basically doing everything by myself right now with Wayve. So anything from like fulfilling orders to doing the marketing to posting on social media to doing all the finance stuff. Like I'm kind of doing everything by myself. So I think that's one of the harder parts, is just balancing where I want to focus my attention. But yeah, I think packing orders has been something that I've really enjoyed, because it kind of gives me a chance to reflect and like appreciate the fact that someone decided to spend their money with me and on the products that I'm creating. And I always think that you can go, like the route of using a 3PL and having someone else fulfill your orders, which I think at a certain point of a company's like life cycle, maybe it makes sense. For me, I'm still small enough where I can juggle all these different things, and I take it as an opportunity to kind of show that gratitude. So I write like handwritten notes for every order, and I make them like, I don't just write the same thing over and over again. Like I try to tailor it to that person, and say thank you for ordering, maybe mention something about what they ordered, and if it's their first time ordering or if it's their 10th time ordering, like I'll mention something like that. And I think it goes a long way to show that like there's a real human behind this. Like it's not just some other brand on the internet that maybe was created completely with AI or something, which is definitely possible and happens today. So I think having that element of human touch goes a long way. And I see it, like I see the benefit of it too, because I have people DMing me or emailing me and saying like they appreciate the note, and then I see them come back again and support the brand. So I think it's kind of an investment into creating like a loyal customer base that actually cares about what you're doing and knows that I care about them and am appreciative of them. So yeah, I've found it pretty fun to do, but I will keep doing it as long as I can.
Nice. Yeah, it's amazing to see a brand builder like yourself, a founder, starting from scratch and then going through the process, and watching you grow has been awesome. If you could delegate some tasks, I'm just curious, what are the things you like least? Like, what are you looking forward to offloading when the time comes?
Um, yeah, I think a lot of the like editing for social media is something I want to delegate. Like going into this, I didn't realize how much social media would be like a big part of running a business, and I definitely underestimated it. But like it's just something you have to do. You want to get people to see your brand, and it's important to tell your story and reach out to the right people. But I don't particularly enjoy like editing videos, and I don't necessarily enjoy like scripting stuff and like talking to a camera as if it's scripted. That's why I kind of tend to go the route of like I started a YouTube channel where I just kind of talk to the camera and leave it pretty unedited, because I don't want to spend my time like going through and editing. So I might hire like a video editor at some point when it makes sense. And then that's probably the main thing. Other stuff that you could delegate is some like ad agency to run your ads for you. But I don't know. I kind of like the process of going deep into all these different parts of running the business, because I kind of think of it as like a video game. Like when I was younger, I used to really love playing video games, and I like the idea of like leveling up and like learning things and improving. And I kind of think of running a business on the back end kind of like that. So it's fun to learn about how ads work, how emails work, how to get people to sign up for your SMS list or whatever it is, and not in like a scammy way, but like learning how it works is pretty interesting, and I think is something that I enjoy doing. But yeah, like over time, as brands grow, I think you have to start handing stuff off. So when the time is right, I'll start there and probably start with like the social media aspect, so I can focus more on like working on the products and all this stuff. And yeah, but there's like a ton of different things that go into it, and so far I'm enjoying like working on all the different sides.
What is your favorite part of the process? What's the thing that gets you the most stoked to work on?
For sure, like sampling new products is the most fun. Maybe it comes to like at my detriment sometimes, because I think I can get distracted working on new products when I need to focus more on like scaling one product perhaps. But I think it's just so rewarding to see like something that I thought about in my head come to life, and then opening up a package and seeing like, well, this is like exactly what I wanted. And I used to not be able to do it. I used to have to hire people to do all of the, like fashion design aspects of it. But now I've kind of, throughout being exposed to that, learned how to do it myself. So for like the sweatpants that I just released, I was able to do that where I, think of the idea, I sketch it out, I make a digital mock-up, I take the measurements, and I send it to a factory, and then it comes back in the mail and it's like, well, it's like exactly what I wanted. So I think that process is really fun. And then being able to share it with people and see people wear it and enjoy it also is like, I don't think I'm going to get tired of that feeling anytime soon. So that's for sure my favorite part.
Glorious. Well, I really appreciate all the work, commitment, and dedication you've put into making this come to life. I'm currently wearing a Wayve tank top. I wear your shorts all the time. The most recent episode I published with Noah Ryan, he also mentioned how much he loves wearing Wayve Wear. The shorts are comfy. It's a great alternative to polyester. They're functional and they look good. So I'm excited to see what will come from the Wayve in the future as you continue to create more products, and stoked for everything that you've been doing in the world. It's awesome. So thank you.
Dude, thank you so much. No, I appreciate it. And yeah, always love talking to you. And this is, just the start. So there's going to be a lot more coming from Wayve.
Stoked. Yahli, thank you.
Thanks, Case.